Comment below, where am I? You don't need to comment below, guys. It's pretty obvious where I am. Yet again, dawn is breaking over Chorley Station. And it's Friday, yay! A few people in my comment section have asked me to respond to Apocalypse Cow. This was an hour-long documentary shown on the UK TV channel, Channel 4, a couple of nights ago. I'll leave a link to it in the description because I'm not going to play clips throughout because I guess I'll get done for copyright or something, so I'll leave a link to the show in the description box. I don't know how accessible it will be for all countries, but it's certainly worth a watch if you can watch it. In this documentary, writer and environmental campaigner George Monbiot, I don't know whether I've butchered his surname there, no pun intended, who is a vegan, discussed the state of British agriculture, arguing that the way that we are producing food in the UK, particularly in relation to animal foods, is not sustainable. We cannot carry on doing what we're doing. He started off with some quite alarming statistics. In Britain, we kind of call ourselves a built-up country, an overpopulated country. We are close to, I think, 70 million people in the UK, but only 5% of the landmass of Britain is urbanised. 5%. 10%'s covered in trees, 19% is cropland, and a staggering 51%, so more than half of Britain, is covered by farmland. Farming used to produce animals. Some of it is natural land that has been overpopulated by sheep, and the 23 million sheep that are grazing throughout the UK, they're eating too quickly. 23 million of them. It was the dairy farming that he particularly focused on in the first part of the programme. So once I've caught my train, which is coming, it's coming, there it is, we'll start with that. Leaving aside the cruelty of the dairy industry that vegans know all too well and everyone else chooses to ignore, there are environmental issues that we need to consider when drinking milk. George interviewed a dairy farmer, 3 generations of farming, and she was proud of her heritage. All very well. Her cows were shown grazing on grass. What's wrong with that, you might ask? Well, land use for one, but what about the calves? Yes, the calves are taken away from the mothers at hours or days old, but what do they eat? They eat, and this was a 200 cow dairy farm, so not massive, but 1 tonne of feed was used every single month. 1 tonne of feed, which was made up of soy, palm oil, wheat and barley. And yes, you guys are going to say, yeah, but it's the stuff that humans can't consume. Some of it is, but still, palm oil, don't you complain to me about products that have palm oil in when your milk is actually brought up on it. If you're drinking milk and eating cows and then complaining to me about palm oil and soy and wheat, is that not enough to make you feel like a hypocrite? Then let's look at other issues. All of those animals, they produce manure. So where does all that wastage go to? Well, it's used on crops. So we could at this point bring up the is organic carnist consideration, but I'm going to leave that aside for now, because in the UK conventional farming also uses manure in some instances because it's plentiful. All of that slurry and horrible runs off the fields into rivers and causes pollution because there's just so much of it. Algae blooms are killing fish, they're killing water life. Herbicides and pesticides are doing the same. So it doesn't matter which way around you look at this organic versus conventional farming debate, really, production, all farming production, is having a detrimental impact on the environment. And yes, that does include crop production. But humans have got to eat something, right? So if I'm saying, well, you can't eat cows and you can't eat sheep because they're destroying the environment, you know, monocropping, conventional agriculture is destroying the ecological diversity. So George considered lab-grown meat. You guys who love the taste of your meat could have it at some point in the future without the environmental destruction. It's actual meat grown in a lab. At the moment, it's too expensive. It's not commercially viable. But its time will come. Not that I would eat it. I couldn't stand it. But for you guys who love the taste of meat, it's coming. Don't like the idea of lab-grown meat. Neither do I. What about then flour produced out of thin air? This was something I'd never heard of before, but apparently within 5 years this will be commercially viable, and it's flour that can be turned into all sorts of products. George himself tried a pancake made with this flour. What they do is grow bacteria that are fed on water, electrified water, takes the hydrogen out and feeds bacteria. The electrification process can be done in a renewable manner, and apparently this is so cost effective in terms of, you know, environmental impacts, and it's cruelty free, it's gluten free. What's not to love about that? It's the 60% protein. It's like amazing. And apparently it could feed 10 billion people. But lab-grown meat and flour made out of thin air. Guys, the future is science. Is this why you're so scared of the vegan agenda? But more controversial than even scientific laboratories producing our food in the future was the deer cull that George engaged in. There's one Scottish estate that has killed, culled, shot dead over 90% of its deer population. This is another argument that I'd put forward to refute Humane Hancock's idea about trying to control carnivores, carnivorous animals, because they cause the suffering of other animals. In the UK, I made a video on this a few weeks ago, but in the UK we have a deer problem. They are growing in numbers massively because there's no natural predators, because humans hunted into extinction wolves, bears and wild cats that would naturally keep the deer populations down. So in effect, what those hunters of old did was kind of like what Humane Hancock is suggesting: get rid of the carnivores. But that creates then a spiralling of herbivorous species like deer that do not have natural predators. And when their numbers get so high, they are causing destruction because they're eating all the greenery. So that then has a knock-on effect, not just for the plants, but also for other animals who need those plants to survive. So there's a deer cull throughout the UK a couple of times a year, and on this Scottish estate, as I said, 90% of the deer have been shot, and land is rejuvenating. Now this George guy, a vegan, went on a deer cull. He was taught how to use a gun, and he went and shot a deer. He was filmed crying afterwards. He was filmed, stroking the animal afterwards, and then he was filmed eating the animal. This guy's a vegan. I'm very, very uncomfortable with this, even though George said this is actually meat that's produced not only environmentally, but environmentally positively. I've got a problem with that. Humans have caused, through hunting animals into extinction in the past, has caused this deer problem. Aren't there other ways to deal with them instead of culling them? So ideas have been put forward, such as catching them and transferring them to other land. But that's only effective, I suppose it's only effective to a certain level, because then they're going to just wreck more land, aren't they? Contraceptives have been proposed, which I'm most in favour of, for the current deer that we've got out there, to reduce their numbers, on a generational level. The idea of introducing natural predators, which I'm sure Hugh Hancock would disagree with, has also been put forward. So reintroducing natural predators into places like the Scottish Highlands. I think contraceptives in the shorter term has got to be the way to go. But hey, that was the thing that was controversial about this programme. It was really interesting. It's definitely worth a watch if you can watch it, and I'd welcome obviously all your comments. And what do you think about that programme? Did you see it? What was the most controversial aspect for you? Should we be culling deer, for the greater good? I'll bid you farewell. Got to go in and do some work now, and speak to you very soon. If you're enjoying the channel, you're not yet subscribed, please do so, and all that good stuff. Speak tomorrow.